Hello, HIUS 530 students. My name is Ronald Picciarelli, and this is my final project for the HIUS 530 class. The title of my final project is When Parishioners Leave Their Church, Where Do They Go? Overall, the numbers of Americans in mainstream Protestant denominations has seen a slight reduction, but those numbers can be deceiving. Even the Catholic Church has decried the numbers of Catholics that have left the denomination. But if you drill down and look at the actual numbers of American Catholics in the church, the number of American Catholics has remained the same. Also, the numbers of Christians in the United States has actually remained steady, as some churches have been forced to close their doors through lack of congregants. Others are actually growing in numbers. There is the phenomenon of megachurches in suburbs and in larger cities. Is the closing of the doors of some smaller churches at the expense of others nearby? And where do members of congregations go when they leave a church? Well, if we think about what the mainstream media tells us, they will tell us basically this myth that the church attendance has gone down considerably since the 1960s, and then it's very low to 2019. And as my research and as conventional wisdom tells us, this is not actually true. In fact, the reality of it is that church attendance from the 1960s to 2019 has pretty much remained the same. And since the numbers of the United States population have grown, this is really telling, because they have even more people with the growing United States population. One would also want to believe, in whatever the mainstream media would say, that United States Catholics is a declining denomination. And here's what the myth is from mainstream media sources, that the numbers of United States Catholics has dropped precipitously since the 1960s, and it's at an extremely low level in 2019. Well, that certainly is not the case. In fact, research shows, and the reality is, that the numbers of United States Catholics has pretty much remained the same since the 1960s. But since the United States population has grown quite a bit from the 1960s, the numbers do show that they have the same numbers as they would in the 1960s, but it's not proportional to the United States population. Now, some research that was done in Canada by the scholars Haskell and Burgoyne and Flatt asked people when they left a church, as they were exiting, why they were leaving, and many of them said that it wasn't the church that they were attending itself. There were some outside factors that had to do with why people would leave a declining church. They also showed that growing churches had many internal factors that would attract a person to the church. So I think that the researchers, Haskell, Burgoyne, Flatt, would have these factors that are called push factors, where people are being kind of pushed away from some of the smaller churches. And in growing churches, it's a pull factor. So they're being pulled to growing churches. Now, what do people basically want in a church as they're leaving one church and then going to someplace else? Well, research shows that younger families want real dynamic programs. Younger families would like contemporary music in their worship service. Younger people and younger families would want children's things for kids to do, like a children's church and programs for kids. Younger people and younger families also want more convenient times of worship, maybe more than one service on a Saturday or a Sunday. Younger people and families want better, more dynamic pastors that would give a meaningful message to them. So there's some pretty important factors with contemporary music and children's church programs for kids and more dynamic pastors. There are the research also shows that older people basically they attend the same churches they have been attending for years and years, basically because it's a short commute and it's convenient. Younger families and younger with younger kids, I should say, will drive great distances in order to attend a church with the things that they would like to see in a church. As regard to a Catholic denomination, some people have left the Catholic Church because of the church scandals involved in it. But like I was saying with the research shows that the overall numbers of Catholics in the United States has not dropped precipitously as mainstream media would have us believe. There's a problem with Catholic education where many Catholic people do not send their children to Catholic schools anymore. One of the reasons is that the tuition rates are fairly high, but also some of the families believe that they were not getting a better education in a Catholic school as they would at a different charter school or a public school. There's a growing number of people who say that they're spiritual but not religious, or there are people that say that they're not attending a church, and those people are actually in the minority right now. Research shows that people who leave one denomination may join a megachurch. And one of the things with the megachurches is that they're located mostly in suburbs, or they can be located in a larger city. Usually the megachurch is non-denominational. Also, the megachurch likes to have many pastors there that will minister to what they call the unchurched people, where the services are quite dynamic and they have a lot of contemporary music with guitars and drums and things like that, and choirs and whatnot. But it's music that might attract a person who maybe is looking for a church home or has not attended church in years. The people who leave a church and then join another, I should take that before they join another, they may look for different churches that would appeal to them. They may visit various numbers of churches. But some of the mainstream media would have us believe that people who leave a church never attend church again. And that's not necessarily true. There may be a short period of time where they're looking for another church home, but once they find a church home, these people who have formerly belonged to a church denomination do end up attending a different church. They don't just drop out of all Christian life altogether. Um, I guess what research shows is that growing churches, even mega churches, have various pull factors that are pulling people into their church, such as they have like children's programs in children's church. They have contemporary service. They may have contemporary music too. They may also have very dynamic pastors. They may be more pastors, so they can offer more times of different services that are convenient to people that are looking for a church home. The declining churches tend to kind of do the same things that they've been doing for years and years. They don't really have too much in the way of like a children's church or children's programs. If they do, it's small and not very not very good. They may have one service, and they may have a lot of like elderly people that attend the church because it's convenient or it's a short commute from where they live. And younger families that are looking for a church home would be looking for dynamic churches with contemporary services and contemporary music with children's churches. And they're willing to travel great distances, maybe an hour commute, maybe even longer, to find a church home that more suits their needs. So this has been the project of what I've discovered about why people leave their church, and then what happens to them. They don't just sit around and not go to any church. They will eventually find another, usually a Christian denomination that they want to join, or it could be a megachurch, could be a non-denominational megachurch, but they will consider themselves Christian, and they will attend another church given a little bit of time. So that's my research project. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I very much enjoyed doing my research for HIUS 530 class. Thank you.